Well, welcome to the River Radio Sports Central podcast, powered by NovaCare Rehabilitation. Along with Matt Varney, I'm Darren Kinnard. And Matty, we are 1 week into the football season. We are a week into most of the fall sports seasons. What were your impressions of opening week?
Well, for football, I mean, we didn't see some of the stuff that was coming. But, man, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, opening week usually is, but last week it just felt a little bit more fun with some of the results that came out. But on the same side, a lot of the other sports also just had a lot of. It's just so great to finally be back in the swing after a full summer of being like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah, no question. And looking at some of the before we get to football, obviously golf was able to get going early.
Yep.
And the Benton Rangers clearly have posted the flag that we're going to be not only the team to beat here, but a threat to win a big trophy.
Yeah, well, and congrats also to River Stilley, their star, who committed to Cincinnati. That's huge right there, to go to a college like Cincinnati and be playing golf. That is a huge thing for him, so congratulations to him. But it's not just him that's leading the charge for Benton. They've got – the thing about Benton in terms of golf is the cupboard's always stocked. It does not matter. We saw Cy Norman come up. And then River Stilley started showing up as medalist in his senior year for Cy. And it was like, well, hold on a minute. I thought Cy was the big thing. Well, River's now the big thing. And I'm sure sometime this year we will see a name pop up for Benton that we're going to know for a couple years to come. River, obviously, the star right now. But there's people that are coming up that in the next couple years, it's going to be like, oh, my gosh, look at this guy.
Well, they have depth, and not only River, but Cash Cantrell is another senior that has gone low, and it's not a guarantee that it's River or Cash going to be the medalist. And then you've got again, depth is the key with that Ranger team, because you can have two really good scores, but if the other two aren't great, it's not going to be a problem. Lincoln Thomas has done a great job early, and then you mentioned Cy Norman. His twin brothers are freshmen. That's Coach Reggie Norman's son. And so we're recording midweek, and this is a club that, posted a 141 score for 9 holes. And so when you think, wow, what does that mean? Well, their team shot 3 under par.
Right, exactly.
That's crazy.
It's unbelievable. You see some of these scores, and you got to remember these are 9 holes for the team. But still, it's just unbelievable. River himself had a 30, which ties a program record for Benton for 9 holes. So just a fantastic job by all of them, though, because if he's putting it there and then they're still putting 140s together, I mean, man, they are doing something good. And
it's a situation in golf. You don't have to necessarily win the regional or sectional. You just got to be top 3 to advance. But this is certainly a team to beat. And in the smaller schools, Waltonville, Cessna is off to a great start. Brendan Klingler individually is a young man that made state last year and is having a great start to the season this year. So there could be a force in 1A. When you look at the girls' side in particular individually, Marion's Grace Roper is the one that just jumps off the page.
That's the name that's been out there for quite a while now. She had some elder statesmen in the area in the 2A and the 1A areas that now it's her realm, basically. She's had to contend with a lot of people, more so at the smaller schools. But now it's Grace Roper's world, and everybody else is just living in it.
Because 1A, it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be Mount Carmel,
right?
And I mean, it's incredible that a small public school in southeastern Illinois is the dominant force.
Truly,
but they have won 3 in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not 3 in a row regionals, 3 state championships in a row. They're well on their way to a 4th. And they only have 1 senior. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going to go with, of the fact that you want to talk about the cupboard always being stocked in Benton, Mount Carmel, especially on the girls' side.
Crazy.
It is constantly churning out player after player after player. They are always good.
Looking at another sport, volleyball got off to a big start, and man, they get right after it.
They do.
That first week is loaded, and we saw tournaments over the weekend. I think that you see that Carmi-White County, the team that went to state in 2A, finished 4th. And Nashville are the 2 upper crusts in 2A, NCOE in 1A, and nothing that I saw this weekend changes that.
Yeah, no, all of them were clearly the upper echelon for the sport. But something that was really interesting to me was just this past Monday, Labor Day, Marion and Carterville meet, And Carterville had yet to win a game in the season. They're considered number 9 in the coaches poll on River Radio Sports Central, and they're searching for a win, and they finally get it over a quality Marion club.
Yeah, and that's a big win for them. As far as Nashville goes, they sweep the River tournament, did not give up a set, and then on Tuesday night they go on the road and beat Bree Central, and the reason that's important is the way the IHSA sets up the 2A postseason.
Right.
Nashville's going to be sent west.
Yes.
And they're going to have to deal with Central. They're going to have to deal with Mater Dei. They're going to have to deal with those type teams. Whereas Carmi, White County, Fairfield, and the bunch, they're going to go east.
Right.
And it gives us the potential in this region to have 2 teams at state like we did last year was Mater Dei and Carmi.
Right.
But Nashville, they have got that is a murderer's row to try to get through.
Without a doubt. And real quick note also, as we kind of wrap up volleyball here, I want to give a shout out to Murfreesboro. I got to as the play-by-play man, but you follow them a little bit. They maybe aren't playing the quality of competition that you're seeing from some of these other schools that we're talking about here, but with a young, brand-new coach, they are doing fantastic here in the early season.
Well, and that's a great point in the fact that not only is it a young, brand-new coach, but you're losing one of the area's top setters in Sarah Cook and clearly one of the area's top hitters in Megan McNitt.
Yes.
And I know there were a lot of coaches that wanted to make sure that they walked across the stage at graduation because those two were so good.
Yeah, always were. And now that's the thing with high school sports. After about 4 years, you got a maximum 4 years, if that. And then you got to go find some new ones. And so that's the fun in it. And then when you get a brand new coach, which you see every year in every sport, someone comes in and says, we got to do something new, or I got to find a way to repeat what we've been doing. And right now, Murfreesboro is trying to figure out how they can capture that lightning in the bottle again.
And as far as soccer goes, we saw, we talked about last week, the heat being an issue. The heat played a factor with soccer in some cases, and then cross country also the same way. So I don't think we got a real firm grasp. I know they did run the Wildcat fast start, and so Marion, the defending 2A champs, they got off to a good start. And again, you talk about losing a guy. When your guy's going to Indiana in the Big Ten, Dylan Nally, a defending state champ, so they've got to find a way to fill in. But they're off to a good start, and that's a team that's also very young and on the rise. Yeah,
and you don't see in a sport like cross country usually a name like Dylan Nally rise up. So it was a lot of fun last year following that and seeing just how far he would go in the sport and where he would go to college and all that. Now it's onto a brand new season. Brand new crop of names for a lot of people that maybe just jumped into that sport after following him last year. It's going to be a lot of fun this year.
And the same thing goes for Benton. With Gavin Genesio graduating, but there was a ton of talent, much like that Benton golf team.
Right.
The cross country team's the same way. They're loaded and going to be a threat. And we're recording here on Wednesday, and today is the big Murfreesboro meet that opens, and the weather much nicer for everybody, including media that's covering it.
Absolutely. I mean, I was we have a 20-month-old at home, and we decided to stay in last night, just quiet night. But we went out for watering plants, picking up the mail, and we're like, we really should have gone outside last night. But yeah, the weather's been beautiful all week. And hopefully that sticks the rest of the week, honestly.
So let's go ahead and get into the football talk. Obviously, Carbondale Murphy was quite a battle,
yes.
And we talked about how it's a tremendous matchup. Doesn't matter the year, and this one did not disappoint. And I know from the Murfreesboro perspective, it's not the result you wanted.
No, for Murfreesboro, it's not. For Carbondale, they will absolutely take that result. It's always a heated matchup, no matter what. Every single year. You get Carbondale Murfreesboro, and you're always asking, how's it going to go down? Some years it's maybe more clear, but this year it really was, how's it going to go down? Obviously, Murfreesboro had a lot of big returners, but Carbondale was, hey, we have a bunch of new guys and a pretty good line, but aside from that, we don't know what we're getting out of this. And so took Carbondale a little bit of time to get their feet wet into it, but come the second half, they were ready to go. Brian Lee said something at halftime to fire them on up, and then a couple of decisions. A couple things that happened in the second half really kind of helped rev the engine a little bit more. And in the fourth quarter, Carbondale comes through and picks up a huge win.
I think that, since Carbondale had the 3-game losing streak and, talking to the senior players, I mean, that was enormous to them. I thought the win was bigger for Carbondale than the loss is big for Murfreesboro, if that makes sense.
I agree. I think there's some things that, and I'm sure the coaching staff will agree with me for Murfreesboro, that there's some things that could have been cleaned up that they'll have an opportunity to this week playing Anna Jonesboro, but definitely not earth-shattering type of loss for Murfreesboro. Last time they lost to Carbondale, they were in the 4A state title game. So
they did all right.
I think they're going to be okay. But you definitely, if you're Murfreesboro, you can't let it affect you the rest of the season. You just turn the page.
Well, and at the end of the day, either team, win or lose, it isn't the Super Bowl,
right?
Because it is.
They might treat it that way,
but at the same point, it is simply a non-conference season opener. And now you have to move on. And if you're Carbondale, if you go and you lose at Granite City,
right,
then all the good work that came from especially that second half is lost. And, if you're Murfreesboro and you're pouting because you lost to Carbondale and you go out and drop, it can't necessarily be, okay, hey, we won, we're fat and sassy, or, we've lost and, oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. And it's not the win that's going to make your season. It's a great way to start the season if you win it.
Absolutely.
If you lose it, like I said, turn the page. It's time to move on to week 2.
And another situation like that is we saw maybe a lot of people were surprised. Not that Benton won at Carterville.
Right.
I think the final, the being 41-0, I think that caught a lot of people's attention. And again, I don't think that is in this day and age, there is that tendency to overreact.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't think that's going to be necessarily an indictment on Carterville's season. I do think Benton's really good.
I agree. And, I mean, I think most people would after seeing that score. People expect big things from Carterville. Big things are expected from Benton every single year as well. They got a senior quarterback that we talked about last week that is going to be really, really good. And, I'd have to talk to Dave McKenzie a little bit more about what exactly happened now that he's had some time to clear his eyes a little bit on everything. But nonetheless, it was definitely more of an indictment of how good Benton is and not how bad Carterville is. But I think that score was really shocking. But, you get into a lot of games where, hey, it just starts rolling a little bit. And then all of a sudden you're looking up and you're like, how are we down by 3 scores? How are we down by 4 scores? Why are they winning 42-0?
Right.
And so it could very well have been that, Benton just kind of got that ball rolling. Carterville wasn't able to stop it. And that just is how it ended up going. But, yeah, we'll be obviously watching both teams very closely the next couple of weeks.
Tiffin Gazookas, 11 of 14, 167 yards, 4 touchdowns. He threw 1 touchdown, and then he ran for 4 touchdowns, ran for 64 yards as well. And so you see the dual threat there. Jesser Cepeda, the wide receiver, tremendous weapon for him. Also a pretty good kicker as well. But what kind of gets lost in all that, and again, I'm not downplaying that in any manner, but Benton's defense was stifling.
Right. Well, and I think that's the big thing right there. The 42 points is that's nice. That's great to see. But how do you get there? Well, you usually, if you're going to score 40-some points, you usually have some pretty good defense. And then when you pitch a shutout as well, that defense is clearly very good. Murfreesboro sees them week 3, so I'll be seeing them week 3. I'm looking forward to see just how darn good this Benton club is and how they stack up against another one of the better teams in Southern Illinois.
And so if you're Carterville, you're 0-1, and now you've got to go to Nashville week 2, and the Hornets took care of Carlisle 52-8 in the opener, and so that's not going to be a picnic.
No, but Brett Dial does a great job in the offseason of setting his team up for these situations. He purposely schedules some of the toughest teams in Illinois in the offseason for the 7-on-7s, for the scrimmages. He goes out and finds tough opponents. Last year, and I think it might have happened this year as well, I have to double check, but I know last year they played Rochester, who was in the 4A state title game, because he wanted to prepare his team as best he could against very good opponents. They're going to be a good club. They lost a game that people maybe didn't expect it to be lost in that way last week, but I expect them to bounce back. Nashville's a great club, but don't count Carterville out just because they lost last week the way they did.
And another team that's going to be in the bounce-back mode or trying to bounce back is DuQuoin, who lost at home to Chester 35-27. But that bounce back, again, a lot like Carterville, it's not going to be a picnic because they get Harrisburg week 2.
Yep, who I think is still trying to prove that they are still that team that they were last year. They played Anna Jonesboro, who's in the course of, they got a brand new coach. They're still trying to kind of get out of the rut they've been in the past couple of years. So Harrisburg wants to prove, hey, we are still that team. We're still going back to the quarterfinals. We're one of the best teams in the area. And what better way than to play against a DuQuoin team who is going to be angry about last week's result and it was one of the best teams in the area last year. Harrisburg has something big to prove. They are not going to just give a win on over to DuQuoin.
Well, and last year, DuQuoin was able to win multiple games in the final minute.
That's right.
Close games, figure out a way to do that. Not able to do it, week 1 against Chester. But one of those games last year was at Harrisburg, and a game that they I think the word stole is overused, and there's a negative connotation. But when you're down late on the road and you're able to get that game-winning drive, that's a big deal. And they were able to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the gang in purple remembers that.
Oh, without it. I promise you they remember every single close loss from last year. They've been taking notes. Everybody that is returning has said, this is the revenge list. And honestly, the ones that they won at the last second, they're also putting that on the list because they're like, we aren't letting people doubt that one, even though we beat Carterville 2 times.
A couple other impressive performances week 1. West Frankfort, we talked about. They were a team that potentially could do some things. Got some younger guys that played a lot, and they go out and they beat Massac County 51-14. And so the Patriots, they go on the road to Ballard Memorial. It's a smaller school in Kentucky, and so an opportunity for Massac to get back into the win column. And when you sit and you look at West Frankfort, they get a home game with Heron.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Heron in a minute, but an opportunity there for the Redbirds to start out 2-0.
Yeah, and I think we were just talking about another Franklin County team of I think it's more of an indictment of how good Benton is. Well, I think this is an indictment of how good West Frankfort is. People have been waiting for them to burst onto the scene. They've got a really good senior quarterback in Travion Johnson. Look for this to be the start of something for the Redbirds. I think they can make the postseason this year. They've been pining for that for years, and I think this year they can do it. But Heron was this close last week against Marion until the Wildcats blew on up. We'll get to them in a second. But so Heron, with a brand new coach themselves, looking to prove that, hey, we still are here. We're still going to be able to be okay.
And let's talk about that Marion-Heron game. It ended up 42-21. Marion jumped out to a 2-score lead. It was 20-7 at the half, and then Heron goes out and they pretty much had the ball almost the entire third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter, and they're able to get 2 touchdowns. And Matty, it was a situation where it was ball control.
Yeah,
and we're gonna control the clock, and we're gonna and I think they found some things. Even though it ended up a 3-touchdown loss, I came away impressed with the Tigers, and I'm not saying that this is a playoff team. I'm not saying they have an opportunity, because I think they found something. They were physical up front. Defensively, they were okay, and obviously 42 points. You're like, oh, what But Marion does some things to spread it out, and Coach Shockley said it in the post game. Look, we ran out of, we don't have very many guys.
Right.
And with that humidity Saturday night, I think you saw them hit the wall in the fourth quarter. But the ability to control the clock, grind out first downs, grind teams, and then they opened that third with a 7+ minute drive. And so now the pressure goes on the other team. It's much like when a team would hold the ball in basketball,
right?
And then they would score, and then the other team is pressing themselves to score, and then Marion turns it over immediately, and so now Heron's got the ball back. So I think there's a recipe there that Coach Shockley found, and look, when the numbers aren't great, your margin for error is slim, and you're one injury away from being in trouble. But was impressed with Kyrie Slukins.
Of course.
Was impressed with Chris Nelson. and again, their big guys up front did a good job, and I think there's a formula that they found there.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick for Marion, Callahan Roper and Max Wade, they had two connections that were fantastic, and Wade had an interception on defense as well. Marion looks like they're going to be okay. Last year they were searching for an identity midseason. Right now they look like they're going to be okay. For Heron, though, they came in, and I think a lot of people had question marks on that team of what is this going to look like. You had a coach that came in really late. Right. And I think some of the fans walked away, certainly the coaching staff to a degree, and the players came away saying, okay, we have an idea now. We've seen this work in a game. Now we need to start building from what worked, throw out what didn't work, and they have an idea now of this is truly our identity. We can make this work, and they should be able to win a few games this year.
And you look at, again, that game at West Frankfort, obviously it's at Frankfort, but an opportunity for a bounce back.
Absolutely.
For
it's a good matchup. We will find out just how good West Frankfort is, and we'll find out if the Tigers can kind of bounce back from that loss against Marion and maybe take the good stuff from that and then start building on that while throwing out some of the bad stuff.
And, you mentioned Marion, and again, that's certainly not downplaying the win, but that's a big win for Jason Dunning. When, the end of their season went south last year, they lost 5 in a row. To come out and to get that win, and again, you're up, and then all of a sudden you're down in a game that most people view that you should win.
Right.
It would have been easy to go, oh, no, here we go again.
Yeah.
But instead, they rattle off 22 straight points and pull out the big win.
And it shows also just the belief that his players that he has in his locker room right now, the belief that they have in him, because they were able to take what he gave them and find a way to get a win, and not just any win, but a dominant win.
Now they go on the road to Granite City. And what was interesting to me, and I don't know if you saw any of this Saturday night, but East St. Louis beat Loyola Academy, the two-time defending 8A champions, and for that's just incredible.
It is.
East St. Louis's quarterback came from Granite City.
I did not know that. Wow.
And last year at Granite City, he was 0-9.
Yeah.
The team was 0-9.
Right.
I'm not going to put that on the young man.
Yeah.
But it shows you what a circumstance can. He was 21 of 24 for like 280 yards, threw 4 touchdowns against a monster. I mean, you know about Loyola Academy. They are monsters, and East St. Louis whacked them. We were talking last week about that schedule, and they go out and they whip the two-time defending 8A champs 34-7. But again, back to he was the Granite City quarterback, and I guarantee you that the Marion guys are not disappointed that he's at Eastside now.
No, without a doubt, they are pleased to see that he is not there. I can make the relation right here for Southern Illinois. DJ Williams at SIU, he was at Murray State, who's not been a very good college club of late, and he walks in, gets to be starting quarterback for SIU, and they've got high expectations. But we go back to the high school realm here. Marion's probably very pleased to not see, but I guarantee you, whoever his backup was last year that is going to be getting the start this week, they've been preparing, waiting for this day to say, I am finally going to be the starting quarterback at Granite City, and I'm going to show them why I should have been the whole time.
Let's talk about the Black Diamond. They start right into conference play. The defending champs, Cecil Waltonville, beat Hamilton County 22-6, and you thought that one might be a defensive scrum, especially the way Hamilton County did in the scrimmage against Benton.
Right.
You heard good things about the Foxes' defense, and SVW is a team in transition a bit offensively, other than a stout line. And again, that's just hey, we're gonna just line up and go at it.
Yeah, well, and want to bring note to the people that didn't know that there was a player that was injured in the first half that slowed the game down significantly, brings down the mood for both teams as well. So you see a 22-6 game. Hamilton County fought even through all that misery that they were feeling at that moment in time. We hope for the best for that player. But nonetheless, they came out and put up a respectable game. I know 22-6, you see that and you're like, okay, but like that is pretty good against Cesar-Valier, who again a team in transition, but still nonetheless considered one of the top teams. And you got 2 of the top coaches in the area coaching it as well.
Johnson City, a big winner over CZR, 62-0. That one got out of hand even before half. The Indians roll on. Carmi White County beats Flora 36-20. Noah Pollard runs for 252 yards, and just the latest guy in a line of guys for the Bulldogs that are putting up 200 plus.
I know, it's a system that works at Carmi-White County. But Flora also, their quarterback, who was not one of the ones that we mentioned last week about, kind of the big returners, but he was kind of like the first guy off the list.
Yeah.
He had a fantastic game as well. He had 170-some yards through the air, and he kept Flora in the game for a while. That score didn't really balloon up that way until midway through the second half.
And El Dorado goes on the road and beats Edwards County 22-20, and the Eagles came up with a couple of big defensive stands late. And for a program that has struggled a bit the past couple years, what a big boost to go on the road week one for Joe Clark's club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it was a close game throughout. And you hope that that's an indication for both clubs that, hey, maybe they've taken that next step, that maybe they can make the bottom of the Black Diamond. Maybe they aren't the bottom of the Black Diamond. We don't know. It's just one game, but it was a close game. And you love when you see close games because whether you're a good club, whether you're sitting at the end of the season and you're 1-7, if you're close in that last game, everybody's paying attention to that game. So you want to have those close games if nothing else because it shows, hey, we're right there.
Well, and it's an important game because so often in the Diamond we see kind of tiers. You have the top 2 or 3 teams, and then you have the bottom 2 or 3 teams, and then those teams in the middle. If you can, obviously there's the ability to get 5 or 6 playoff teams if you get to that 5 wins, and a game like that can be the difference between El Dorado maybe getting the playoffs.
Absolutely, when you're in a conference that is closed. There's pros and cons, but one of the big pros is, hey, if we can be one of the top 5 teams in this conference, we've got a pretty good shot of making the playoffs. And so this is step number 1 in a 9-week season of getting to the postseason.
So let's take a look at the we touched on a few of the matchups week 2 in the Diamond. Carmi-White County's at Hamilton County. Again, I think that might be the most interesting matchup of the Diamond this week.
Yeah.
CZR's at Flora, Edwards County's at Johnston City. El Dorado goes to Fairfield. We didn't mention the Mules. They got the unexpected bye week because of Vienna Goreville, so they come off the forfeit win. So that's a season opener for the Mules. Cecil Waltonville's the team that is off this week because of the Vienna Goreville forfeit. And so we touched on Fairfield last week, and I'm guessing that's going to be a hungry bunch of Mules to go out there.
Without a doubt.
To see their first game action.
Without a doubt. I mean, they had a scrimmage 2 weeks ago, and so they are ready to go. And to, stomp everyone that they can stomp, basically.
South 7 gets underway. Carbondale's at Mount Vernon. So the Terriers, we mentioned last week, not being their Super Bowl. Well, there's a reality check. Now you got to go to Mount Vernon, who we didn't mention the Rams. They fell at home to Waterloo. Dan Ming's squad is young, so that's not a hugely surprising result. The loss at home, I mean, no loss at home is good, and all this and that. But
they were right there.
But they're right there, and again, I think that Mount Vernon is going to be a much better team by the end of the year than they are here at the beginning.
They were right there, and they were leading a majority of that game, and just it comes down to showing their youth at the end. Waterloo's able to go ahead and take that victory from the jaws of defeat.
So Carbondale at Mount Vernon in the South 7 opener for both teams. Non-conference, you mentioned Murfreesboro's at home against AJ. Carterville at Nashville. Centralia picked up the Shrine game win over Salem. Freshman quarterback, the coach's son, had a huge night for the Orphans, and so now they go on the road to Collinsville. Collinsville is a team that's been in the 7A playoffs the past couple of years. Not sure if they're quite as strong. It's a little tough to judge because we don't see a lot of those Metro East teams, so we're just kind of score looking. But Collinsville lost to Belleville East 30-15. So again, not really sure where that stands. The big one, I think, Harrisburg and DuQuoin at DuQuoin, Heron at West Frankfort, Marion's at Granite City, Massac goes to Ballard Memorial. Pinckneyville at Chester. The Panthers struggled against Redbud in the opener. Chester picked up that massive win at DuQuoin to open week 1. So the Yellow Jackets go home with a chance to be 2-0.
Yeah, without a doubt. And they're in a conference right now where if they're walking in 2-0, 3-0, I can't remember exactly when they start their conference play, but if they're walking in with 2 wins, they're feeling pretty good about postseason chances, without a doubt.
Benton has its home opener. The Rangers welcome Salem, who we mentioned lost to Centralia, and then we'll post the full list on Friday of the games. It includes all the Cahokia schools and the other Metro East schools. Mount Carmel is another team that life without Blaine Sisson is a little bit different. They found not necessarily a shame to lose to the Gibson Southern out of Indiana, but a bounce back this week against Effingham, a team that put up 54 on Robinson. So they've got some work to do.
Without a doubt. Well, and that Benton-Salem game interests me as well, because Salem and Centralia were going back and forth all last Friday night, so you could probably make Salem comparable to Centralia right now. So essentially Benton, they're not playing Centralia, but they're playing a team that's about as good as Centralia. Can you go ahead and, as a 3A school, go and beat a 5A school, basically? That's the comp we're making here.
Right, and, again, we see the challenge of the rain. If you see, and again, weeks are different. We know that. But, the transitive property doesn't always work. Well, if A, then B, then C, that's not the way it works in sports. But, if we see Benton hold that Salem offense down after it just put 35 on Centralia, it certainly would be an interesting and very impressive point of view.
Well, and not to say anything about past Benton teams, but their calling card has been the offense for since Justin Groves took over. So if the calling card flips on over to a dominant defense, and we've got Tiffin Kazookas and a explosive offense, look out for them. They're angry about what happened last year in their postseason. They feel like they should have gone deeper. And this team might just be able to do that if they truly are what we saw week 1.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the River Radio Sports Central podcast. We thank our friends at NovaCare Rehabilitation for bringing this to you. For Matty V, I'm Darren Kinnard. Again, be sure to tune in for Friday Night Live, powered by Charlie's Heating and Air. That's on Facebook Live Friday nights, whenever I can make it back to the station. I seem to find all the 3-hour epic games.
Yeah, you got to find the ones that are going to finish right away.
Yeah, I don't. I generally don't go to the clock games.
Yeah. Well, those are the ones you are. That's what you get paid to do, to go find those.
To pick the good ones.
Yeah, to pick the good ones, exactly. So you're doing the good job. But, yeah, maybe you could get back a little bit earlier.
Just know that if you see me on your sideline, you're in for a 3-hour cruise.
There you go.
And it's not Gilligan's Island. So, anyway, have a great week, folks, and we'll talk to you again next week. Take care.